Well, hey, stranger. How's it?
Hi, Friday.
Yeah, today's Friday.
My Friday friend. How are you?
Doing good.
Awesome.
Evidence-based triathlete.
Yep. So for those of you that have been wondering where we've been, we're getting things going again. And one of the things that we discussed, we did a planning meeting last weekend, is John and I have kind of talked about pretty much every big thing in triathlon over the last 5 years.
Mhm.
And we were having trouble, coming up with like new topics and intriguing topics. And so one of the things we discussed was maybe revisiting some things that we covered several years ago, and with the thought process that we've evolved.
Mhm.
Triathlon has continued to evolve. And so some of the topics we're going to come up with this spring are going to be things that we've maybe covered before, and maybe we'll just cover them in a little bit different, in different light. How's that sound?
No, no, it sounds good. And yeah, we're always evolving as athletes in different ways. And, this is good to go back and talk about nutrition because nutrition is, a pendulum swinging back and forth in terms of what the recommendations are. And it's so easy to get overwhelmed as an athlete in terms of what to do from a nutrition perspective. You go into any store and you look at all the different options that you can buy. It's hard. It's hard to know what is right. And so, yeah, it's going to be fun talking about what we do. And I think what's important, we got to put a little asterisk
Yep.
over a lot of this because anecdotes, they drive hypotheses. And you and I both, try to come up with things that work for us, and then let's see if we can test these things out. And so we just need to be careful with that. And the nutrition that I use and that you use, it's obviously individualized. And I don't mean to be dismissive of that, but it's important to recognize that I don't like spicy tacos. And
Right.
my wife loves spicy tacos. So we have individual taste needs as well as our gut is very individualized and we need to respect that. And so what one works for one person may not work for the other. But there are tenets that are based on evidence that I think each of us try to follow as we set up a nutrition and hydration plan for 70.3.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think the interesting thing with we start talking about nutrition is people oftentimes they forget about the psychologic aspect of food.
Mm-hmm.
And not just, not just around race day, but every day, right? There is definitely a psychological component to what we
Oh,
put in our body. And I think it's really interesting too that, people love to tell you what they're doing. And we're going to do it today.
mm-hmm.
And with that exactly what you're saying that, oh, it works for me, so it's going to work for you.
Yeah.
And it might not, because once again we have a lot of variability within ourselves, but there are some things that specifically for long distance triathlon that we probably are very similar in,
Mm.
and our similarities are we're probably more similar than we're different when we really break it down into the what's the word, the macronutrient and even micronutrient breakdown that we're going to be talking about. Because ultimately, to race, one thing is always going to be important. You need to have energy,
Yeah, totally.
right?
Well,
And go ahead.
and though I love that you mentioned the psychology part because the gut brain connection is real. And I don't know if you've ever been sick and you had some food. Sometimes you connect being sick with certain foods.
Yep.
And, I can't eat Oreos. Why? Because I had a heat injury, eating Oreos during a race. And so now I can't eat them. It's nothing about Oreos. It's about my brain is triggered somewhat for some way that causes a nauseous. And so there is that. That's an extreme example, but there is the psychology, there is the taste that is important, and your taste will change when you're exercising. And what tastes good during exercise is going to be different than what tastes good when you're just sitting around watching TV.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of, I don't know, dark magic with nutrition because there is a lot of things that change with exercise and what your needs are. But like you, I go back to the tenets in terms of making sure I have the right amount of energy to be able to do the task at hand.
Yep. I think you're kind of hitting a point I wanted to get at in this vein and other veins, correlation and causation, right?
Mhm.
So I've had people say to me, "Oh, when I ate this, this happened, so I'm not going to eat that again."
Right.
Even though it's probably was what they needed. And when I ate that, oh, my stomach turned bad and I had diarrhea that day on the race course. Well, just because you ingested that during your run does not mean that that was the reason you had diarrhea. You could have had a gastrointestinal infection. You could have had this. You could have had all these other things. And you could have also done the exact same thing 10 times in a row. And that 11th time,
Yep.
something else happened. And the gastrointestinal system is this marvelous thing that we really, even as researchers, know very little about.
Yeah.
And,
Hmm.
and I think people really get caught up into this. Well, this happened, I did this, and this happened, and that's why. And,
Hmm.
and oftentimes it's not. Another one we talked about this in our last podcast was the cramping thing.
Hmm.
Well, I ingested this and I cramped. So it was the ingestion of this that caused me to cramp when chances are it probably wasn't. But once again, you drive that into your psychology, right? Like, well, I don't want to take the risk of repeating that.
Hmm.
So I'm just not going to do it.
No, I love it. And you and I have both had the experience where we've settled on a nutrition plan or nutrition strategy, either hydration or fuel, and it worked for one race, and then we go to another race and it didn't work. Something else happened, and because there's so many other factors that come into play, and I think what both of us have done is learn through experience how to adjust a plan based upon whatever it is. Environment, for example, that's a strategy killer.
Yeah, for sure it is.
If your day is cold or versus hot and humid, or if your race is extended because of the weather conditions, it's or the intensity of the bike course or the run or whatever it is. You need to be able to be flexible with the plan based upon some general concepts.
The other one I really wanted to touch on is sometimes things like you were saying they don't go to plan. Number one, what if you drop your nutrition, right?
Yeah,
Let's say
I saw
you're on the
you.
bike. John, you've seen me do it.
Yeah.
We talked about this before. Well, you have to be flexible, right? And you have to be like, hey, like I'm going to have to get nutrition from the aid station
Yeah.
and be okay with that. And it didn't ruin your day because you dropped your nutrition.
Hmm.
Another example, this happened to me last year at Monterey. It was my understanding there would be gels at every aid station.
Right.
It turned out there was gels at one aid station.
Right. Right.
Okay, my fueling strategy, which we'll talk about, means I'm going to have 4 or 5 gels on a run.
Hmm.
Well, when the first aid station doesn't have any, start thinking, okay, well, that's weird. Hopefully the next one will. The second one didn't have any. I have to now change, right?
Yeah.
And so at the third aid station, I grabbed a banana because
Hmm.
to me, that's like, okay, that's the carbohydrates I need are best in the banana because the other option at that race was a protein bar.
Hmm.
Well, so I've got two options, a banana or a protein bar. Well, I'm going with the banana. Have I ever raced with bananas? No, but I'm not going to be let my race be negatively impacted because I can't have my chosen thing every single time.
Hmm.
And I'd heard people talk about that race afterwards as well, saying that actually ruined their race for them because,
Hmm. Hmm.
well, still carbohydrates are carbohydrates. And is it the exact thing I wanted to have? No.
Hmm.
Did I make it work? Absolutely, I did. And I think being flexible is important.
No, that's a great point. And aid stations, I treat as supplementing a plan, either fueling or hydration, as opposed to being the plan.
Yeah.
Because you're right, sometimes the aid stations they get it wrong, or they run out of something that were expecting, and now all of a sudden you're sort of stuck. So I do when I do the longer events for sure. I really think of aid stations as supplementing, not being the plan.
Yeah. I just want to share this little anecdote with you. So I don't know if you know, but some of the bigger marathons, especially in Europe, they only have water at all their aid stations.
Hmm.
That's
Okay.
it, just water. And it sounds odd for us in North America in particular, but
Yeah.
with some athletes that have went and done some of the major marathons, and they knew it because it's published. It's like, well, how for you're going to be out on a marathon course for 3.5 hours. You have to carry all your calories with you.
Hmm.
Different game plan, right?
Hmm.
You might see in a North American race, or if you've done triathlon.
Yeah.
So when you do travel, so like, for example, like that trip to Mexico, I was expecting something other than what was actually going to be there. Because honestly, if you do a North American 70.3 an Ironman branded race, you pretty much know what you're going to get.
Hmm. Hmm.
But that doesn't mean that's always going to be the case, especially different brands at different places.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And yet, back in the day, marathons were done without any aid stations.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
now we've got them every mile or every 5K or whatever it ends up being based upon on the race. So,
Okay, so let's talk about our what we do. If
hmm
everything goes right, right? Like so we talked about the contingency planning, but I'm going to ask you, John. So if you were to do a 70.3 this year, what would be
well,
your nutrition plan?
yeah, and I do need to preface this a little bit that I've had a lot of GI problems over the
Right.
years. And so I've tried a lot of different things, and they didn't work. And but I eventually did come to a plan that seems to work. And so this is not a prescription.
Right.
This is a lot of failure to get to a spot. But one of the things that I learned is, 2 to 3 days out from the event. I know we want to talk about race day stuff, but I have to eat super clean, rice, chicken, applesauce, real simple stuff. Uh, Lots of salt. I do salt food quite a bit pre-race. So it really starts with the week before. I'll have the oatmeal. I'll have things that are easily digestible and things that I'm used to eating too. And so if I'm traveling to a race, I actually pack a lot of this food, and then I'll be eating that as opposed to the local cuisine. And that sort of stinks. Like when went down and raced in Mexico, and I wanted to go eat, the food, but I'll save that for after the event. So I
So
start there.
yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right, and I think we talked about this on the podcast. But when I raced in Mexico last year, our two pre-race meals were at Chili's.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
no,
'Cause, like, did I want to sample all the local cuisine? I absolutely did, but I also was like, I need to be really careful.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So you're right. So like, yeah, I guess it does build in from a few days before because I'm the same. Like I go especially the day before, very very particular about being very clean, like you said. Uh,
Hmm.
some protein, some very simple carbohydrates without much fiber in them. Um, Salt, water, um, sugar.
Hmm.
candy. But yeah, so I guess is candy clean? Sure, candy can be clean, right?
Yeah.
So I'm the same with that. With the understanding that I'm trying to basically, I don't know, almost repair my gut
Hmm. Yep.
before the event, like decrease inflammation in my gut the best that I can before the event actually starts.
Yeah, I like the way you think of that. And then for a plan on race day, I do shoot for a plan that is roughly 60 to 90 grams per hour. Now, depends on, where I'm eating relative to the swim, because swim is whatever, 30 minutes or so. I've got to make sure that I have something before the swim. And then as I get out within the first 10 miles of the bike, I'm trying to do something very gentle, because going from horizontal to, upright, it just, it takes me a little bit to get used to, drinking and eating. But then my main go-to for the bike, it's weird. I cook rice and salt it ahead of time, and I put it in baggie, and I take that along with me. I used to stick it up my shirt, but now that's illegal. So
Is it just bottles up your shirt that are illegal, or
yeah,
are you
maybe
allowed to
stick them
put
up.
rice down your shirt?
Yeah, but I take a log of rice,
Yep.
and that's my go-to. And then I supplement that with sugar, gummies, gummy bears, and chew on peppermint gum as well. And then I also on the bike ride, I'll take a tube of salt, and I'll take a swig of that every 15 minutes.
Okay, so I love this, and this is for you. This is for like a 70.3 or an Ironman distance, right? Like
Yeah,
you
this
have
would
a
be
very similar plan.
yeah 70.3, one bag of rice. If I do an Ironman, then it's two bags I'll pick up at the special needs.
So I just love your approach, by the way. This is like so amazing because you're covering your base, right? Like you're getting the grams of carbohydrates. Have
Yeah.
you thought much about rice's glucose to fructose ratio?
Hmm.
Have you thought about that? Do you know what it is?
Oh, I've thought about it, but and I do. I should have mentioned. I also take two bottles of about 40 grams of carbohydrate drink with electrolytes in it, and it's just off the shelf carbohydrate stuff. Um, and so yeah, I think about that, but at the same time, um, I don't I don't get into the details of it. It sounds terrible, but I found that rice works for me. It keeps my GI system sort of full, but not overtaxed.
See, and once again, I love this. Like I'm so excited to be talking like this because it's my contention that as long as you have something that works for you,
Hmm.
that's you're getting the carbohydrates in basically almost any form, right? Now,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure rice has fructose and is it glucose and fructose? I think in rice, and then
Yeah.
you're having a drink that also is probably a 2-to-1 ratio, which is perfect. Um, and I love that he said, oh, just like some regular carbohydrate drink. You're not like doing some high level
Hmm.
$5 a drink
No.
thing. And guess what? It works.
Yeah.
And this is such an important thing for me as well as and we've talked about this before is you do not have to spend $50 on nutrition for a race.
That's right. Hmm.
Money does not equal being better when it comes to basically carbohydrates that are like the simplest thing you can ingest, and you ingest a lot of carbohydrates every single day of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think some of the really manufactured carbohydrates can actually cause problems for people, to be completely
Mhm.
honest with you. Um, yeah, I saw you look it up. So what is the glucose to fructose ratio of rice?
Yeah. No, it's not coming up right
Oh,
now. So rice is a glucose polymer, not fructose.
oh, really? I thought there'd be fructose in it.
Yeah, that's yeah, polysaccharides, glucose-based carbohydrate stores, mostly starch, low fiber, high glycemic index, faster digestion, absorb. Yeah,
Sounds
such.
to me like the perfect race nutrition, right?
Yeah, yeah, great,
Like
great. It does.
it's going in fast.
Yeah.
And
Well,
uh,
and it's not only the thing, it's not only what you're taking in, but it's the timing of it,
exactly.
because you can't overload, nor do you want to get to where you're trying to play catch up. So what do you take?
Okay, so I'm pretty prescriptive with racing. So with I always have a gel just before I get into the water, like within 5 minutes. Like I'm in the chute 5 minutes before there's a gel.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a little slower swimmer than you, so it's going to take a little bit longer. Maybe that's why I do this. But I also I've suffered just I think we talked about this before with rebound hypoglycemia.
Hmm.
And the last thing I need to do is to bonk right when I start swimming. So if I have a gel right before, that's perfect. And honestly, like I've kind of gotten into Morton gels just because I know that that's what's going to be on the course. So I'm used to that. I don't usually train with them because they're too expensive, but for a race, I'll ultimately use one right there. And then I actually what I'd like to do is have a second one as I'm transitioning. So I keep one in my pocket. So as I take my wetsuit off, if it's a wetsuit race, I have one, especially if it's a long transition. I know some of the courses are really short transition, but a long transition, I'll try and have a gel during the transition as I'm running to my bike.
Okay.
So I run to my bike, have another gel, and I think that satisfies me to get the first 10 or 15 minutes of the bike without having to worry about the nutrition. Because I think that, like, I don't know about you, John, but I'm always nervous in that first 10 or 15 minutes.
Oh
There's
yeah.
so much happening.
Yeah.
People are passing. There's a lot of action there. And usually about 15
Anxiety.
minutes, it settles down,
Mhm.
right? Like you kind of get into your groove, you kind of get into the flow of the race of where you're going to be. Not as many people passing, you're not passing as many people. And then I kind of get into more structured
Mhm.
um, eating.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I've actually gone to um, gels and candy. So
Wow.
the at the last race I did popcorn flavored jelly beans.
Well,
I
Pop
know because I
flavor.
wanted something different. I wanted like
Yeah.
a different sensation, a different
Love
flavor,
it.
and I like them, so that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
I had a bag of popcorn flavored jelly beans, and then I'm back to mixing my own gels in a gel flask,
Okay.
and I'm using like drink powders, like
Hmm.
drink powders, and just mixing them like a syrup.
Okay.
It's actually way cheaper than gels
Mhm.
when you do it that way. And I'm doing like 5 ounces, like a 5 ounce flask or a 6 ounce flask.
Okay.
And I keep it in my back pocket.
Yeah.
And am I allowed to have a flask in my back pocket?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
not
That's
on the
fine.
front of my jersey, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So I keep it in my back pocket, and then in my bento box, I've got my candy.
Okay.
And because actually I think that having candy is a reward, right? Like I
Yeah.
like candy. I'm racing. I can eat candy as I go. Life is good. And and I know once again that it's not the optimal mix of fructose to sucrose, whatever, but I'm happy with it and it's good. And I like you, 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour is kind of my goal.
Mhm.
But I also play it a little bit by ear too. And what I mean by that is um, there are times when I eat and times when I don't based off of how I feel.
Mhm.
Like there's been times when I'm like, oh my, I can't stomach anything anymore,
Mhm.
especially if I've made a sustained effort. And what I mean by that, there's certain times in a race where maybe you have to push a little bit harder. Like maybe there's a hill or a section of long hills. So the last race we did in Marbella, we had a 45-minute climb that started about 10, 15 minutes into the race. Well,
Mhm.
45 minutes was a pretty exerted, a pretty good effort.
Yeah.
So I probably had a little less than I would normally have. But then as it flattened out on the top, I'm like, okay, I'm going to eat a whole bunch,
Yeah.
and then we're going to do a long, fast descent. I can't eat.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
And so sometimes the race course will dictate how many,
Mhm.
what you can actually get in. And then also, like you, I'm drinking, and I'm drinking a carbohydrate drink as well. And I'm
Mhm.
trying to always factor it in and play a balance between the food and the drink. Because when I'm in aero, I can drink because I have a
Yeah.
straw coming up. I can drink when I'm in aero. So this is it's something that's more nuanced than I think just saying, okay, have my alarm on my computer that tells me every 15 minutes to do something.
Right.
Because there's definitely times I won't break arrow, right? Like if I'm going fast or I'm into a headwind,
Mhm.
if I sit up to get some food out or I move my hands or whatever, like I'm actually affecting my CDA very significantly. And if I know the course really well, okay, well, I'm going to do a U-turn up here and then I'm going to get a tailwind.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait to eat till I get to the tailwind section.
Mhm.
Do you ever think of things like that nuanced?
Oh, oh, totally. Yeah. No, especially like you say, where sometimes the course dictates when you can eat and when you can't.
Yeah.
You know, a sharp descent or the climbs that you talk about. And like you, I think I said, you know, in the first part of the race, it is a little bit crazy, especially on the bike.
Yeah.
But I do wait really to start eating my rice, if you will, until mile 20. That's something that I try to hold off, and I'm only drinking something before that. But yeah, you know, if you got tailwind, you can sit up. It's a little easier to eat, and you're not worried about arrow as much. So things like that you can take advantage of. But I'm curious on your jelly beans, and I don't mean to make, but I have the same problem with trying to eat gummy bears or gum. You start trying to grab them, and all of a sudden you're spilling them all over the place. So
I know it creates an obstacle for people on the road.
yeah, yeah.
So what I actually normally do, honestly, I'll like put my hand in my I like get a little Ziploc bag in my bento box and I'll pull out like five or six at a time and I just put them in my mouth and maybe a few hit the ground. I don't know. Like I'm not littering on purpose.
Or do you got them in a bag in your bento, or they're just
Yeah.
in the bento
No, I
loose?
have them in like a little Ziploc that's
Okay.
open inside my bento
Yeah.
box.
Yeah.
And honestly, that was the first time I ever did jelly beans.
Yeah.
But I knew there was two really long climbs
Yeah.
that I'm sitting up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I could just like kind of like nibble, right?
Hmm.
Like have a
Hmm.
couple. And once again, on these long climbs, when you're going like 5 miles an hour, 6 miles
Yeah.
an hour, or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
you're not worried about like the breaking arrow.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
And I like the idea of being able to be flexible that way. I do try to keep tabs on the time only because it's easy for me to lose track of
yeah.
what I've been doing. And all of a sudden I may go 30 minutes without doing anything. And so I try to make sure I get through one bottle every hour. Uh, Again, the environment's the strategy killer. You know, it may be more, maybe less, based upon on the environment. And I do try to eat something continuously through the hour too. And so, you know, I try to have a check every 15 minutes. What did I do? And you know, ballpark. It's not, you know, buzzer going off. Okay, now you got to do this. It's like, oh wow, 15 minutes went by. I didn't even realize it, and I better drink or eat at this point. Or how's my bottle? You know, halfway through an hour. You know, am I halfway through my bottle? And so things like that, I try to just pay attention to.
yeah, and we've talked about this before, but you're not being too prescriptive, especially on the drinking based off of environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it can, if it's hot and humid and I'm sweating a ton, I might go through three or four bottles
Mm-hmm.
on a 70.3. If it's cold, windy, overcast, I'm there's been times at Oceanside I haven't even gotten through two bottles
Mm-hmm.
because it's
Mm-hmm.
been in the 50s and cloudy, and I know I didn't sweat that much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't, with that, I always kind of go back to we talked about this before, like the drink to thirst side, right? And I think that the drink to thirst stuff works well. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it blows up if you say, hey, my I'm going to drink four bottles, and that's where I'm getting all my calories from, but it's not hot, and you're not, then you're taking on too many liquids, and that can create GI issues as well.
Right, right. Now, do you keep just plain water anywhere on the bike?
No, I pre-make carbohydrate drinks, but when I
Hmm.
get to aid station, so if it's a hot race, then I only replace with water
Okay, okay.
because I have enough I know the carbohydrate number I kind of want to hit.
Yeah.
I can do that with the food and the initial two
Mm-hmm.
bottles that I start with two. But then I go to water, and partly because I've been burned with carbohydrates from aid stations where, like back in the day, we used to get the Gatorade bottles. I know that's not a thing anymore. And there was
Yeah,
the tab thing. I
yeah.
couldn't get into it, and then you just end up spilling. Like as I'm filling, like
Oh,
I have
yeah.
a front bottle, I end up spilling carbohydrate drink all over, and I'm all sticky. And so I plan just to get water at the aid station.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I keep my front bladder between the bottle or between the air bars. I keep that all only water,
Okay.
and then that way, if I start feeling like I'm overdoing it, then I can just switch over to just the water.
Well, and I think that's a good way to do it, right? Because you have the carbohydrates anyways,
Yeah.
right? And I actually think that I could do a full 70.3 with just water as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like because I could just add more carbohydrates and gels quite easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's, and as we transition in our conversation and in the race, on the run, I only drink water.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
I
Water, ice cubes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because I want to separate it out, and I want to be like, this is for hydration, this is for
Hmm.
carbohydrates, and because I've kind of had a hard time, when you get a cup of Gatorade or whatever at an aid station, I might get 2 ounces, I might get 3 ounces, like how much is actually I'm getting in, but I know if I take in a gel, I know that I'm getting in this amount
Hmm.
of energy. And more of the races are going away from actually having carbohydrates in the drinks anyways.
True. That's right. Hmm.
So might as well just have water.
Do you, on the run, do you also do jelly beans?
Oh, this is such a good question. So I'm going to tell you a little anecdote because it's kind of fun. So back when we've talked before about my orienteering career.
Hmm.
So I used to do there's a Canadian candy called Smarties, which I,
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I'm sure you've had Smarties. They're like M&Ms.
Yeah.
And I used to run with a little box of M&Ms. That was my nutrition. By the way, back this is like, 30 years ago, I was on the forefront of sports nutrition by
Yeah.
actually having carbohydrates while I was exercising.
Yeah.
Because nobody was doing this, but I had a little box of Smarties. And as I would run, they'd be in a box and they go tick, 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 and make this like rhythmic sound.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so maybe I need to go back to something like that for my
Hmm.
triathlon is to throw a box of Smarties in my kit. But that being said, I haven't went to jelly beans on the run.
Yeah.
Um, for me on the run, honestly, I'm at a pretty high percentage of my VO2 max while I'm running.
Hmm.
Um, my VO2 max heart rate is, I think it's like 169, 170. And most of my triathlon runs are like 160.
Yeah.
So as a percentage, that's really high. And so on the bike, I'm more like 150. So like as a percentage, it's lower. So I feel like just personally, I have a harder time ingesting things other than just pure gels
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
run. The banana, once again, it was a thing I had to do, but it wasn't preferable.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. And I'm the same way. I don't take as many calories during the run as I do on the bike.
Yeah.
And if I do take them in, it would be likely a gel, or I will take a bag of gummy bears with me and still munch on those. Um, for 70.3, for a full distance, an iron distance event, that's different. That definitely hard to do a marathon without taking in some carbohydrates after doing the 112 and the 2.4 mile swim. So iron distance events, the fueling on the run is important. But there you're talking about intensity. Intensity is lower, and frankly, the lower the intensity, the more options you have.
Exactly.
I can eat all day just sitting here in my chair and not have any GI problems. A little bit of exercise, walking, okay, I can do lots of different types of options, but higher intensity, like you're talking about there, you have fewer options that are tolerable.
Yeah. No, it's totally true. And um, I think I learned this from marathoners in particular is because they're even a higher level of intensity.
Hmm.
Say elite marathoners, and they are very, very, very simple, most of them.
Yeah.
Whereas we get to the Ironman, I know a lot of people that they'll do a chocolate bar halfway through, and or they'll have a sandwich halfway
Yeah.
through the run. If you're at a high level, you can't take that in. You
Right.
could, but you probably are going to not feel very well.
Hmm.
So on the run for me, I've actually targeted now 5 gels for
Okay.
73. And I know that seems like a lot, but I'm able to do it and it
Hmm.
works. It works for me. So I start at the first aid station that's there. I grab a gel and I don't usually ingest it until I'm coming up to the next aid station. So,
Okay.
like the whole thing, like having some water with your gels is a good idea. So as I'm coming up to the next aid station, I open it, I ingest it, throw it away in the trash, which is you hit the thing, and then I have some water right away.
Okay.
And so I kind of plan it that way. And then I kind of preload. So then that aid station, I don't get a gel. So the next aid station, I get a gel, save
Okay.
for the next one. So it's like this, almost like this leapfrog pattern
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that I use. Um, the only caveat is, and this has happened a few times to me, is where something happened on the bike. Maybe I didn't eat enough. If I ever feel hungry on the run, then I will slow this down and I'll actually have more gels earlier.
Okay.
I feel like if I'm hungry, I that's not a good sign.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I
No.
use that as a mechanism. If I start to feel hungry, it's like a gel every aid station until I can't take it anymore or I don't feel hungry anymore.
No, I love that. And see, what I like about this is there's flexibility that we each have, but you also have some structure.
Yeah.
And that structure sort of forms the plan, but yet it's not regimented to the point where, you get stressed if something didn't go exactly as planned. You're
Right.
like, okay, well, now we're just, okay, the structure is, here's what I'm going to do at this stage. So I like that.
Yeah. And back to the run as well, is like every aid station I have water.
Yeah.
Like, because the truth of the matter is, in long distance triathlon, 70.3 or Ironman, very rarely are they run in the cold.
All right.
Like,
True.
because runs usually we're starting, in a 70.3, you're starting around 10-ish in the morning.
Hmm.
You finish around noon. So in full Ironmans, you're starting at 1,
Yeah.
right? It's the heat of the day. And
Hmm.
the nature of our sport is such that if it's warm enough that the water is warm enough for you to swim, it's usually a
Yeah.
time of year where it's going to be hot out.
Well,
So,
yeah. Whereas marathons are usually done in the spring or fall where it's cooler.
yep.
But yeah, for our, triathlon, it's typically our races are happening in the heat of the day,
Yeah.
and that has to be part of the plan.
Yeah, part of the equation. And I think that the flexibility once again is huge for people.
Hmm.
And I think we don't always think about the flexibility and
Hmm.
being able to be fine with whatever ends up happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So on the run for you, what do you ingest on the run then? Because you don't have your rice then.
I'm mostly focusing on water, and I'll just take a tube of salt with me as well, and then I'll pick up a gel as tolerated on the run.
Do you do salt for your 70.3s?
I do, yeah.
Trying that. Okay. Okay. Just more wondering.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you're not carrying your rice.
No, not for 70.3. For an
But for
iron,
a full you will.
yeah, for a full I will. I'll take or I'll take one in the beginning, and then I'll have another one at my special needs.
The really quick thing I want to talk about before we jump off is what do you think about for post race? Is there
Yeah,
is there a plan or you just eat whatever?
it. I have a hard time eating right after
Me too.
that, and it can take some quite some time before I'm ready. So what I typically do is before the event, I'll stock my fridge or my trailer with lots of different things because I don't know what's going to work or what's going to be tolerable afterwards. So I'll have a wide variety of just everything from ginger ale to Pepsi to solid foods and just ready for something. So the plan is to try to have something, but usually I crave ice cream afterwards. I don't know why.
But the thing is, you still are having a plan,
Yeah,
right? The plan
yeah.
is to have a variety of things.
Hmm.
I think that this is something that, when you race a lot like we do, having a plan like this is important
Hmm.
because it's so easy just to fall into, oh, this is the post-race food. Well, like you said, you don't eat it usually because you're not hungry. I'm the same. Like it usually takes me 45 minutes to an hour to want to actually eat something solid. So one of the things that I've tried to do is if someone's there to watch me, like if my wife is there or somebody else, is just like a protein drink. Right?
Yeah.
Once again, going back to the old chocolate milk, like
Hmm.
chocolate milk,
Yeah.
20 or 30 minutes later. I'm not the one that could like just gun it right away, but I usually can tolerate that. So at least I'm starting to get some amino acids, some protein back into my system, and some carbohydrates along with that. Because for me, and I know a lot of people that listen to this, I'm starting to think about the next race already.
Hmm.
And sometimes, especially in the spring or the fall, the race schedule gets pretty compact.
Yeah.
And I do think that the sooner I can get back to like thinking about the nutrition for the next race, maybe the better I will.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and maybe less so at the end of the season, right? Like last race of the year, and you got like 4 or 5 months till the next race. Maybe it's not as important, but if you're doing another race relatively in relatively short order, the sooner you can get thinking about that, I think the better.
No, I love it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, we're back at it. So
Yeah.
thank you everybody for listening today. And John, thank you for meeting with me today, Friday afternoon, and
No, totally. Good to catch up.
getting back at it. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, thanks. You too. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.